thank you, Cass. Thank you. Manifesting. That looks witchy too. Now, I want to open up the panel. I don't know if Kristen's still in here, but I wanted to talk about the Delphi trial right now because something interesting happened. And yesterday, my mind was completely made up on Richard Allen. But something interesting happened that I can't explain. The interrogation of him came out. And in that interrogation, he said things about the crime scene and about Abby and Libby that wasn't out in the public, that the news didn't know, nobody knew. How? How is this possible? Test on the mic 1, 2. What's up, Joyfully? So good to see you in here, friend.
Hello, hello. How's it going?
Good morning. Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween, indeed. And happy Samhain to other fellow pagans, such as myself. Now, we are going to get in today about the fact that, yes, indeed, he did talk about the crime scene. This was updated this morning out of WSBT, a local news station. It says, Delphi double murder trial testimony centered on confession as day 12 gets underway. Day 12 of the Delphi double murder trial began Thursday morning. It comes as the jury Wednesday heard new details about the confessions allegedly made by Richard Allen while he was in prison. Allen is charged with the murders of Libby German and Abby Williams in 2017. The psychologist who examined Allen at the Westville Correctional Facility says Allen began admitting to the killings in April of 2023. She says Allen confessed to the murders in step-by-step detail, with many of those matching the crime scene. Allen told psychologists that he intended to grape the girls, but got spooked by a vehicle that went by and instead slashed their throats. What is clear is whether Allen had access to the crime scene details from his lawyers at the time. Allen's defense claimed that the confessions should be thrown out because he was mentally unstable. The psychologist said she did believe that Allen had situational psychosis, but at times believed he was, quote-unquote, faking symptoms. And the testimony had resumed at 9 a.m. this morning. We'll have updates on air starting at noon. So I will check on this website at around noon, Central Standard Time.
So let's talk about this for a minute. Now, I read some of the transcript from the interrogation, and he knew details that were out in the public. I was so set yesterday. I still don't feel like they have enough. But I don't know how he would have known those details unless he had been there. And they claim he didn't have access to those files or anything, or the crime scene or anything. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments.
So, question.
Mm-hmm.
If he had access
what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments.
So, okay, question. Mm-hmm. I think my box is broken.
Just hop down and back up, Kristen. That's the only thing that fixes it. Just go out and come back in. What's up? What's up, Positive? So let me go over here to the YouTube.
There we go. Much better. All right. So we need to know whether he really did have access to those crime scene details from his attorneys. Because if he did not, then it would point to he could potentially actually be the person behind the murders of these two young girls. And I don't know, this case gets really weird. And as I was reading yesterday about his mental state and how he was acting, to me, he was putting on an act to be able to have that insanity plea.
Mm-hmm.
However, I don't think it's going to stay in the sense of people accepting it and that he is not mentally sound. When, in fact, if he did this, big capital IF, if he did this, that it would prove that he was of sound mind and that all this is just simply an act. And the psychologist did point to that in the article that I just read, that he was quote unquote faking symptoms. Mm-hmm. So if you're faking it, you're still going to get stuck with it regardless. So that's my stance on that.
Let's just listen to a few updates here. Let's see. This is only 3 minutes long.
At Vistaprint, we print signs so people can see your brand up close. But we also print signs so that people can see your business here and see it here.
Today's shocking testimony in the Delphi murders trial. Good afternoon, I'm Dustin Grove.
And I'm Anne-Marie tuning in for Felicia today. We are watching 13 News at 4. Thank you so much for joining us. Well, today happens to be day 11 of the Delphi murders trial. And during testimony today, a psychologist talked about the suspect, Richard Allen, confessing to killing the two teens, Libby German and Abby Williams.
Let's get right to Bob Siegel. He has the latest from the courtroom.
Today, the state called witness number 38, the state psychologist who treated Richard Allen while he was at the Westville Correctional Facility. And what jurors heard from this witness was by far the most damning evidence they've heard about Richard Allen. Dr. Monica Walla told jurors she met almost daily with Allen, who was on suicide watch during most of his time at the state prison. And during some of those meetings, Allen gave detailed confessions about committing the murders of Abby Williams and Libby German. She says on April 5th of last year, Allen told her, "I killed Abby and Libby, I'm sorry." She said during that session with the defendant, Allen became tearful and said he has been selfish and a coward all his life and that he wished he could go back and change his actions. He also said he wanted to apologize to the girls' families and give them his Bible. Then, Dr. Wallace said in her meeting notes from a session with Allen a month later, those notes reveal an even more detailed confession. She says on that day, Allen told her he went to his parents' house in the morning, bought a 6-pack of beer on the way home and drank 3 of those beers. Then he bundled up, went to the trails where he saw Abby and Libby, followed them across the bridge, and then he says he did something with his gun, which he thought explained how a cartridge might have ended up at the crime scene. Then Dr. Wallace said Allen said that he told the girls to go down the hill, planned on sexually assaulting them, but then he saw a van and got scared. She said Allen then told her that he told the girls to cross the creek, cut their necks and made sure they were dead, covered their bodies with branches, then returned to his car, staying off the trail so he would not be seen. Dr. Wallace said she also heard Allen confess to the crimes during a phone call that Allen made with his wife Kathy, and that he wanted the psychologist to witness that. The focus of much of the testimony and the cross-examination is on what was Richard Allen's mental state at the time that he made those statements observed by Dr. Walla. And the defense is working hard to discredit the psychologist by pointing out her unusual behavior for a psychologist. We'll have more on that coming up on 13 News at 5. In Delphi, Bob Siegel, 13 News.
Okay. So at this point, you would have to prove to me that he had access or knew about the crime scene, because there's too many details, or he was involved. I know we talked about the voice yesterday. Henrietta came up to the panel. We talked about all of that yesterday with Brad Holder, Ron Logan. We talked about Keegan Klein. We talked about all that. Brad Holder's voice matches. That's the thing that really turned me over. But now there's no explanation as to how Richard Allen knows the details of the crime scene. Thank you to Brex.
I would love his attorneys to just say, yes, we told him those details, or no, we did not. That would help me a lot in not thinking that he was not involved. Mm-hmm. He had to have that knowledge from somewhere. He either A, personally knew it, or B, he was told it.
Well, we don't know if Richard did it or not. I was convinced yesterday that he was, mistakenly put there or tied to it. But now, I don't know. Now I'm going to have to, like Kristen says, see the rest of what's happening as far as did he have access to those files prior to this confession, which the psychologist said happened in April of 2023. Look into how many hours he was interrogated as well, and how much is actually on camera. Well, after the trial, I'm sure they'll release all of the interrogation footage. Yeah.
That thought of a hole in that case. What if he started saying all this stuff because he was coerced to give him something? And he may have just, who knows if he wasn't truly of sound mind and just gave him something out of coercion because he thought, okay, if I give them something, maybe they'll let me go. I've heard of that happening before. But it would also go back to his mental state of, is he easily manipulated? Was it truly coerced? I mean, if it was coerced, that's a hole that the defense could really poke and really push to say, this is all not true. And I'd like to see what the defense does.
Yeah. Coercion was a theory from day one because of the fact that so much ties the case to others, says Joyfully. Thug says, I thought when cops showed up at his house, he says he knows it's over. He did say that. And here's the other part. Ron Logan hold on a minute. I'm referring to my notes and I'm trying to put two and two together here. Ron Logan's roommate was locked up with Brad. But I don't know if it was Ron Logan or Ron himself. Somebody came home that day during the time that Richard Allen says that he got spooked and he heard a van. And guess who came home at that exact same time in a van? Now, he could have heard the van from the bridge guy, Richard Allen, and just used that as part of his why. I just find it peculiar. How would he know that? It just seems like it's not. You have to go by what makes more sense. Joyful says it's funny because that bridge is long and the road is not in sight. Well, it backs up to the property of Ron Logan. In fact, the girls were found on his property. So by the time whoever got the girls to the point that they were at, you would have been able to hear in the back, somebody coming home per se. But somebody would have had to pull a pew-pew, in my opinion, to coerce them down the hill together. Because if they had just pulled out a knife or a box cutter, one of the girls probably would have ran because they could only catch and get one. But when you have a weapon on them, neither of them's going to move and both are going to go. He knew about the cartridge. Oh, I don't know if he knew about the cartridge, but he admitted to messing with his gun at the scene. And that's why probably the cartridge fell. Joyfully says she believes there's more than one person involved. Possibly.
I can bet and say that at this rate, as you said, his voice doesn't match. There's nothing tying to Richard Allen to the scene in the sense of DNA.
Mm-hmm.
So my question is, if it's not truly him and there's nothing holding him in the case, then why are we going after Richard Allen? If there's nothing there, there's nothing solid. And honestly, it's looking like a case that the defense might win. And the reason why I say this is they can prove that A, he was either mentally unstable, or B, it was coercion. And either way, it could, somebody somewhere is going to get him off. That's all I'm saying. Like, there's too many holes in the case.
I feel the same way. I feel that they are not winning right now, the state. Because there's too, like you said, there's too many holes, there's too many what ifs. And when you're trying to prove beyond a reasonable doubt, that's hard to do when there's so many what ifs. Thank you, beautiful disasters. Meow.
In a civil case, the what ifs could work. But honestly, this is a criminal case, and it's on the prosecution side to provide that burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt to the jury. And unfortunately, I honestly, as an observer, have doubt.
Me too. We have 50,000 likes almost, folks, just here in about 10 seconds. And we have 106 souls in the room. Today's live goal is 10 potatoes en pâté. And I'll pin that just in case you want to send a potato. Nope, but I totally agree. So next they're going to have to, like you said, convince me, thank you, Cass, that he knew those facts and used them. I don't know why. What would be his purpose of using those minute details in an interrogation, and apologize for doing it? It wasn't to get out of jail. Was he really that manic to know all of those details if they had not been told to him? I'm saying if that's the case. And
I'm thinking he may have potentially known that minute detail because of the fact it's a teeny tiny town. Everybody knows everybody. Of course, it was the big clutching pearls moment of the town where, oh my gosh, this is so terrible. And, everybody's gossiping. So I would say, yeah, he may have known because of them spending time with each other, it being such a small town, some things are going to come out. So, but once again, there's nothing physically tying him to the scene. So, I don't know. To me, there's too many holes.
yeah. I think, hi, Joyfully.
Hello, hello. So I followed that case way, like when it started, when it first happened, before there was really any focus on Richard Allen. And one of the things that really got to me is the amount of information that was given to law enforcement that they never passed on to their superiors. So there was one person, and I'm not going to remember all the details because I haven't looked at this in many months. When Micah passed is when I stopped looking at this. But one of them mentioned having known that there was going to be DNA because he spit on one of the girls. And he said this to law enforcement. And this was not passed on. This was not something that was logged into evidence. He was not taken in for questioning. Richard Allen made it clear that he was being abused, he was being beaten. So which of the things that he says are we supposed to believe? Are we supposed to believe this confession? Or are we supposed to believe our eyes and how quickly he deteriorated physically, which matches up with him saying how he's being mistreated and being abused and being threatened left and right. And some of these threats were witnessed by his defense team, his original defense team. I mean, there's so much in this that even if I can't say he's innocent, I can't say he wasn't there because I don't know for sure. But I will say that if he was, he wasn't alone. Other people are involved and it's being covered up. And there's links among these other people to other crimes that have happened that law enforcement have brushed under the rug, including arson that cost the life of a woman's whole family. All her children were unalived in an arson case that has yet to be solved. There was what was it? Who was it that unalived himself in the parking lot of the police station that was also connected to all of this? I don't remember if he was an officer or if he was a DA. And he was also found to be involved. And there's a lot of details in there that I don't know if everybody knows them. But again, all of this came out before Richard was caught, before he was arrested. So now a lot of people only paid attention or paid more attention to it after the arrest occurred. And they haven't gone back to really see all of those details. So there's a lot more to this that I think a lot of people don't know. And like I said, I don't remember the exact details because it's been about, 10 months since I really looked into this, if not more. And I used to have all the information on my other phone.
And this is more of an observation. Would anybody strike Richard Allen? I'm asking the chat too. Would anybody strike Richard Allen as the type of person that would confess for the sake of getting attention?
No.
He seems very cowardly to me. He seems very introverted to me. And that was another thing that always bugged me, is how heinous the case was, the scene, everything that happened to these girls. And you want me to believe that this is the first and only time this person has ever done this? And yet there is another case that is similar to this with another young lady. I don't remember if it's in Indiana or if it's just across the border in another state. And that case is unsolved, but there's no link to him. Where there are links is between him and Brad that go way back. They used to be neighbors.
I'm still stuck on how he knew the details. Once I hear that he was tainted with like you said, it's a small town and maybe it got out and maybe he knew the details before he went in.
I mean, there's a possibility. A lot of information did get out that wasn't supposed to get out. Law enforcement did a very crappy job at everything. Because like I said, there was a lot that was provided to law enforcement, a lot of tips that were provided to law enforcement that were never followed up on, that were just barely scribbled down in their little notebooks that was found in discovery after Richard Allen was arrested. None of this had ever been addressed. None of this had been followed up on. Nothing had been investigating. And these were credible tips, including someone saying after it came out that there was DNA, someone said, oh, I know why there's DNA. I spit on one of them. Like what? How are you not going to bring that person in for questioning?
Right. Cajun Honey says that they feel that there's more than one person responsible. Thank you guys for sending the ghost sisters. I really appreciate y'all and sending and taking care of my panel. They take the time out of their day to come up here, so please send them some love, and I know that they appreciate that. Well, so they talked about yesterday that the jury was sequestered for 6 weeks. Do you think that the trial is going to take up the whole 6 weeks? We're coming into the first 2 weeks here.
So I haven't been following the trial. I don't know who's doing their thing now. Is it the state that started, or is it defense that started? I assume it's the state that started, right? So the defense hasn't gone up yet, basically, so to speak, right? They haven't made their
I think
case.
it will potentially take the full 6 weeks. However, it depends on how many witnesses they call. And that way, if they finish up early, that would be interesting. However, I do foresee jurors possibly sequestered for that full 6 week period.
Right. And do we know whether or not his previous defense team is able to be called as witnesses?
I don't know. That's interesting.
Yeah,
because is it still attorney?
Have a lot to say.
Yeah. They would have, yes, you're absolutely right. They would have a lot to contribute because of witnessing the behavior themselves and being there in the beginning.
Right. They wouldn't necessarily have to say what he told them, but they can talk about what they found.
Mm-hmm.
That wouldn't be violating attorney-client privilege at all.
That would have been part of discovery. And that information should have been turned over to the new defense team.
That's the thing, is there was a lot of back and forth did they get everything? Was everything done right? Things like that. So that also became very shady, as well as I think there was, if I'm not mistaken, a motion to ask the judge to recluse herself, and she refused.
Wow.
And I don't remember everything that was, like I said, I don't remember all the details, but I would highly encourage people to go back and look at all the details. And there is one group on the book face that has all the files stored on the Delphi case, and that's True Crime Junkies, which is where I met Casey, by the way.
True Crime. That's where I want to go there.
Yeah, there is a lot in there in regard to that case. A lot of files, all of the motions, the affidavits, everything has been uploaded there. So you can find a lot of information on that group, in that group.
Okay. I will be going there because it had been years since I had looked up anything on this case. And so I'm kind of going into it, kind of getting refreshed as I go along. Oh, yeah, I remember that happened. Or, oh, yeah, I remember. So joining that group will be good for me to recall the facts. Oh, my goodness.
Brooke, you can also find a lot of information on Reddit.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of I don't know what they're called, but there's a lot of groups on Reddit. There's the Delphi case. There's the bridge guy. Pretty much any of those keywords that you type in, you'll find a lot of information on.
But we know, folks.
Find the documents as well.
We know that bridge guy done it, right?
Right.
He was walking toward them with their phone, and he literally said down the hill.
Right.
The problem is going to be proving that Richard Allen is Bridge Guy. Bridge Guy is an estimated 5'8", and Richard Allen is 5'4".
Mm-hmm.
Could there be variation as much as 4 inches in the estimation of how tall Bridge Guy is? Bridge Guy, while he sort of looks like him, was identified by 3 different witnesses to be someone in their 20s or 30s, where Richard Allen is in his mid-40s.
I don't know. He looked like a big guy when I looked at the footage.
Yeah, he looked like a big guy, and I mean, yeah, I agree with Wifey. I really believe the Bridge Guy is Brad Holder.
I started to say, he looks like Brad. Sounds like Brad.
Yeah.
Might be a Brad.
Yeah. And
or
Brad deleted a lot of stuff off of his book face when his name started, really coming up, just because of the things that he was doing. And a lot of people were trying to associate it with paganism and this and that. And it's like, no, you can't associate it to that. But a lot of the details in the case are very similar to that. And I would say it would be like sort of a copycat situation where they created their own little psycho group, and they just, use that as, I don't know, that's what they are, but they're doing shit they're not supposed to be doing, kind of thing. Because, okay, so Richard says he covered the body with branches. That sounds like, when you say it and when you hear it, it sounds like I covered them up with branches, like to cover them up, like to hide them from view. But we know for a fact that that's not the case at all. It was only a couple of branches, and they were arranged in a very specific way. He didn't say that in any confession at all. He didn't describe any of that. And I think that part right there tells me that he heard what was going on. He knew what was going on, because that, again, the branches, that part of it was also common knowledge. A lot of people were talking about it, but he didn't really have that in-depth knowledge. He might have been involved, but I don't think he was there for the quote unquote cleanup, if you know what I mean.
Have you heard? Do what?
I'll be back. Give me a second. I'll be back. Give me a second. Someone's at my door.
Okay. Have y'all heard that Brad Holder is a part of this Odinism? Or that he was a part of that group?
Okay, so for the sake of discussion, Odinism and Astaru are 2 different aspects of Norse paganism. The Odinism has been unintentionally affiliated with white supremacy, which is totally not what Norse paganism is all about. And the Odinism focuses primarily on the god Odin. So honestly, I don't know. I don't know if Brad Holder's linked to that. And I don't know if he is linked to a kindred, which is technically a pagan group that also believes in Norse paganism, and doing the whole 9 virtues and all that. Have no idea. If he is, that's just a little side factor that really shouldn't play into his guilt or innocence, or whether if he really did harm those girls. That's just a side fact of him. To me, it's not enough to assume his guilt or assume that he was affiliated with something truly sinister. Because if you look up I think it's called the 9, let me move back to my personal laptop. It's the 9 virtues, and that gets into like discipline and honor and all the other different aspects of Norse paganism that comes with, let me pull it up and I'll just quickly go over it. 9 virtues. There we go. The 9 virtues are honor, knowledge, protect, flourish, change, fairness, conflict, and balance and control. So basically, and there's a whole thing you could read about it, and you guys can Google it later. But as I said, it's just a side fact. I really wouldn't take it into consideration of his guilt or innocence. It's just something the guy may have been into.
Right. Good afternoon, Henrietta.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Oh, hanging in there. This trial is really tough.
Yeah. Because I'm afraid there is a I'll just say it, TikTok and flag it or not, there's a killer out there.
Yeah, there's a monster lurking. Absolutely.
Do we know of any other incidences? I wouldn't think so, because I think it would make major news, of any other incidences with the shaping of the sticks on any other unalive people ever in the
Not
history
that
of
I'm
ever that we
aware
could compare the formation of the sticks to?
Not that I'm aware of, but I could be very wrong.
I'm sure that they have looked into that they have compared other schlurders around the area, or around the country or world, hopefully, to see the way that the sticks are laid, if that has ever happened before. And if it's never happened before, what benefit would it be to the cult itself to take the two lives and to place the sticks in such a way if they would never do it again and have never done it before? Okay, yes. Wild About Dreams, that's a good point. Or even animals that were found with stick formations. I think it's time that I do more research on that end and see what else has been found in the area, regardless of whether it was tied to an unaliving or not, or anywhere. I just don't understand the Odinism, I guess. And I don't understand the significance of what taking two lives would mean within the cult. Is it a sacrifice type thing, I guess, is what I'm asking.
Odinism and many aspects of paganism in general do, and I can speak for 99% of the groups, they don't do human sacrifice at all. They're not affiliated with it. They're not willing. They do their own practices either privately or in their groups. Very few of them will actually do public rituals, and it's just simply the honoring of the seasons and the moon phases, and that's it, and acknowledging the Sabbats. And the Sabbats and the Esbats. Sabbats are main pagan holidays. Esbats are full moons. They're also rituals for new moons as well. But bottom line is, they're not going to hurt people, especially children. They're
Then,
not.
right, let me ask you this.
Yes.
And I'm not saying you're wrong at all, Kristen. But if that would be the case of the background of Odinism, then why was the defense so adamant about entering the Odinism theory into the trial?
The defense or prosecution?
The defense.
Well, the
That
defense,
makes zero sense.
the defense would enter it because they're saying they would use it as a defense to say that Richard Allen is not a part of Odism, so therefore he is not Bridge Guy.
Because the defense is under the assumption that the Odinism theory is what happened to the girls, and they're trying to show that Allen had nothing to do with an Odinism group.
Right.
But then I still go back to Elvis.
To me, that doesn't make sense. Based on everything that I know and have experienced and have actually communicated and do have friends with that are Norse pagans, they don't do anything of that measure. So if you said like Satanism, such as like the Luciferianism and the the aspects of Anton LaVey, then I would say maybe there's something there. But honestly, majority of them, they just do their stuff in private and acknowledge the seasons, the moon phases, and that's about it. So, and the Sabbats.
Okay. Wow. Well, now, is this day 12 now? This is day 12 of the trial?
Yes, ma'am.
That's kind of what has gotten to me is the fact that was like certain aspects of it was added to the scene, although I know falsely, because I know that's not what I guess you can call it, the religion practices or believes or performs or does in any way, shape, or form. But then again, like I said, Brad deleted a lot of stuff off of his book face, and that included videos of pagan ceremonies that he was in with his son, with his friends and family. So it kind of seems to me like the Odinism aspect of it was added as a distraction, was added as, something to divert attention in the other direction, because there are so many people in the area that are linked to Odinism. But there wasn't, Odinism isn't what drove this, if that makes sense. I feel like it was used as a distraction. I feel like it was one of those things of, people knowing a little bit about something and thinking they're powerful in their whatever knowledge, or maybe being completely psycho and misinterpreting what they knew and injecting it into something that had nothing to do with Odinism at all.
It's possible. A red herring. They exist. It's kind of like, you're right, just me. It might be. I mean, people they tend to, once they get going down a certain path, justify their path. And that's the beautiful part of debate. And the reason I love this country, freedom of speech and the right to debate each other's views. And so, but it all is going to come down to a jury of Richard Allen's peers. And I feel like we're just barely getting started into, although it feels like a lot that they've told us in the last few weeks, I feel like we're just barely getting started into figuring out a more better analysis of who Bridge Guy might be, whether or not that's Richard Allen, whether or not that's Brad or whoever. It's a town of 3,000 people.
There's supposed to be 150 witnesses.
150? Oh my gosh. Yeah. 3,000 people, folks. 2,999 of them are not under suspicion as the Bridge Guy right now.
And his confessions from his mental state, that testimony from, what was her name? Walla. Yeah. In my opinion, they may as well just take that testimony and disregard it, because it has been known that she had an obsession with the case. And that was brought out in trial.
Yeah, she is very into true crime.
She was caught in bookface groups, all forms of social media platforms. Then she was telling Alan what was being discussed, and then trying to form her opinion about his mental state.
She was telling him what was being discussed.
Yes, ma'am.
So that's the possible link to how he knew. Was she telling him details of the crime scene?
Yep.
So that's how he knew then. That could be the reason why. And then in his manic state, he would use the same details to try to confess to the crime.
Yes, and that's what they have determined with her testimony.
Interesting. Okay.
And
Because
that's
I
what
came in this
concerns me.
morning saying that, my mind may have changed again based on the fact that he knew details from the crime scene he couldn't have known unless he was told that or he done it.
Yeah, and then when you look at it, if he's truly being threatened and abused and tortured in the way that his previous defense team described in a lot of detail because they witnessed a lot of it, then I mean, put yourself in that situation. What if you were a person that was just minding your own business and you got picked up and accused of something so heinous, and then you're tortured on the daily?
He
You
looked,
did this, you did this, you did this. That would break anyone.
yeah.
So I wouldn't, there's no way, in my opinion, that it would be to get attention or to, because he's been literally invisible his whole life. Why would he need to do something like that just to gain attention? I feel like he was quote unquote confessing because he was just so over it, or maybe he even started to believe it himself. Because I mean, brainwashing is a thing.
Yeah.
Brainwashing is a thing. I mean, we see it with DV survivors.
Yeah.
You will get to the point where you will question your reality. And on top of that, he had been kept in solitary confinement the whole time, on suicide watch the whole time, and yet all of these guards had access to him. And all of these guards were wearing specific patches that were described in detail by the defense team and were seen on camera. And then, all of a sudden, they were asked to remove all of their patches. Why? Why were they wearing them to begin with? They weren't standard
They
issue.
weren't
They weren't.
supposed to be, based on IDOC regulations. You are not to alter your state issued uniform.
Absolutely. Thank you. You said that way better for me than I could have.
And I know that to be a fact in the state of Indiana.
Yep. Those patches never should have been worn by anybody in law enforcement on their uniform at all.
Just as the new tattoo under the eye with one of the guards, that was not to happen either. But
Kim,
keep in mind,
the patches were alluding to a certain group, a certain extremist group that also has pagan influences.
and keep in mind the superintendent, the warden that was in charge at that time, allowing the patches, allowing the tattoo of his staff, is no longer employed there. So if I had to look at this, and I've asked questions about it, there's probably a back story or a background going on with internal affairs right now with what happened at that facility with those guards.
I really don't think there is, because it seems to me that a lot of cover-up was occurring.
But the superintendent is no longer employed. There's a reason.
Wasn't that the superintendent that was like paid to live on prison grounds?
No,
But
they don't
wasn't
live
living there?
No, they don't live on in Indiana. They don't live on the grounds.
There was someone that was paid to live on the grounds of something, but he wasn't living there. He had his own home and he had relatives living there instead. But the state was paying their water bill, their light bill, everything else.
I'm not aware of that. No, the jurors are not from Delphi. They're from Allen County, Indiana. They're from Fort Wayne.
Yeah, because there was a change of venue.
Well, this
No,
has been
the venue stayed the same. The venue stayed in Carroll County, but because of the I can't even talk today. The publicity and everything with this case, they didn't believe that they could find in Carroll County a non-biased jury. So they went out of county to find the jury, and it just so happens they went to the county where goal of record sits in Superior Court, which I don't think is right either. Because when she fired Rozzy, these attorneys that are on now, she went straight to Labredo and attorneys that were in her pocket. No, you chose a judge from Allen County. The Indiana Supreme Court is the one that appointed Gohl to this case. So in my opinion, the jury shouldn't have been selected from Allen County because that's where she sits on the bench. And no attorneys from that county, when she fired these attorneys, should have been put on the case. It should have been from another county. If you're going to make it non-biased, you got to make it non-biased. You got to have clean hands.
And that also pokes another hole for the defense. They'll say, oh, well, he didn't have a fair trial.
Right.
Exactly.
Now, when she removed Rozzy and Baldwin, she went and assigned her own attorneys. Well, Rozzy and Baldwin had a great, what do I want to say, idea. They said, fine, you can do that. But Richard Allen has the right to choose his own counsel.
Right.
Well, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. So they had Richard Allen sign a document that said Allen or Rozzy and Baldwin were going to take his case pro bono, which meant Fran Gohl couldn't deny them on the case. And she really got pissed then because there was nothing she could do about it. And that's why it went to the Supreme Court, because she said, you're not on this case. So they took it back to the Supreme Court and said, look, she may have put attorneys on this case, but our client has the right, per his constitutional right, to choose his own counsel. And he's doing that. And we're going to do it pro bono. Well, the Supreme Court said, well, yeah, per his constitutional rights, you can't deny the man his own counsel. So they got put back on the case. I mean, they were pretty clever to do that. They didn't walk away from it.
But then it makes you question, what were the intentions behind having them removed from the case at all?
The intentions to have him removed from the case was because, who is that guy's name? Went to their office and took the crime scene photos that were in the conference room.
The reporter guy that also unalived himself, supposedly.
No, the guy that took the photos, dispersed them to people, and then a guy that received the photos unalived himself, and then Fran Gohl charged the guy that took the photos with, I believe it was evidence tampering or something. But the guy that took them didn't unalive himself.
So it was someone else. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, like I said, I'm not too fresh on the details anymore, just because it's been so long.
Now,
But yeah, I know that of two people connected to this case, one way or the other, on one side or the other, that ended their life.
yeah, there was at least one. And did Baldwin and Rozzy need to be disciplined for what happened? Oh, absolutely, 100%. You had people coming in and out of your office, and you did not secure, you're already under a gag order, with the court. And you as the defense did not secure crime scene photos that were so graphic. Yeah, I believe they did need to be disciplined for that because that was careless.
Yeah, very.
Correct.
That's horrible. Thank you, Mama Look. True Crime Baddie, I see you. Thank you, guys.
But the crime scene photos at one time went viral. I mean, people were posting them on social media platforms.
Of the girls?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
When?
Yeah, there was.
I'm glad I missed that. But when was that?
That's been a year or two ago.
Yeah, that was like a year and a half ago.
Let me look and see who took them. Hold on.
Yeah. What is that podcast that has been like the biggest one covering the case?
Murder Sheet.
Murder Sheet. Yeah, they received them. They let everybody know that they were being distributed, but they refused to post them. They weren't going to post them at all.
Right.
Well, I'm not very happy with them because allegedly, if you listen to their podcast and what they're doing, they're going to write a book and do different things with this crime. Whether it be this crime or anybody else, no one, in my opinion, should receive monetary gain for that. And if there's a monetary gain, that should go to the family. Because the family is the ones that are suffering. And then when you write a book and you do all this crap, they're suffering all over again.
Yeah. Well, panel, you know how much I love you. I've got to run for the day. I appreciate y'all. Show my panel some love and throw them some roses and love. They know way more facts than I do. I think that's amazing. I depend on you guys to keep me updated. I know you probably depend on me to keep you updated, but we depend on each other. We're like literally carrying each other through all this. And I really appreciate you.
And I don't mind at all. It's nothing for me to do research. It's one of my strong suits from my former career. And I love being able to give y'all guys breaking news as soon as it happens.
That's awesome.
Some of the research that I'm doing, and I have to wait for one of my kids to come home. They're studying biomedical. So they've been through, they've sat through an autopsy, they've taken chemistry, they've taken biology, all of those classes.
Mm-hmm.
They know a lot about DNA. They know a lot about the human body and different things. So I want to talk to them because I need them to explain to me how we have DNA, but we don't have enough or we're not getting any results from it.
Well, they're not matching it to the right person, in my opinion.
Well,
and that's what I want to
where
ask.
the sample was taken as to whether it would be enough to give a conclusive result. And in some cases, there may or may not be enough. It just depends on where it was taken and how much of that transferred DNA went forward.
Right.
Yeah,
there's that. And then there's also the way I look at it is law enforcement is trying to make the crime fit the suspect.
Okay, I have a question, and it's a very, I don't know if I want to say graphic, maybe not appropriate, but I have to ask. Was male fluid found on both girls?
I heard it was found in a different area. Not on them, but beside them-ish. But there wasn't enough DNA.
Okay, I wanted to know that because I didn't know if it happened with both girls. And if it happened with both, then my next question would be, why do we not have enough if it was both girls?
Right. Right. No, it was not the type of DNA that we're thinking.
Oh, so it is the type of DNA we're thinking that was found.
Just not enough of it.
And that's weird because according to what was said by somebody else is that he spit on them.
Mm-hmm.
There's other male fluid. I'm trying to do this TikTok.
No, I know. We all know what you mean.
I know what you mean.
If he was interrupted during it, as Alan states, it would make sense as to why that particular fluid was on the side versus in the girls. Excuse me
Right.
for
Right.
the imagery.
And I mean, that part doesn't really make sense to me because there's two of them. How was he able to assault one and the other, what, just stood there? Or did he
That's where
hold a weapon on one and
pew that's where the pew pew comes into play.
Well, but also this too, the medical examiner testified that there were some light marks on Abby's face. So it looked like there was something over her face or she was subdued in some way. I feel like he subdued Abby and then he done what he did to Libby and then Abby was next.
But then I go back to if Walla, the psychiatrist, with her obsession with this case, she was in Facebook, book face groups, other social platforms, and she was feeding Alan this, and then Alan was saying what he did based off what she told him. She did not know until trial, or she should not have known, put it that way, about schmexual or anything of that, or that type of DNA, because that was not brought out till trial. If you go
If that is true, Henrietta, that is a massive hole in the case, and that could really make a big difference in that case.
Yes, ma'am. And here's something, else to think about. She was feeding that to him. Nobody knew that. And if you go back to Superintendent Carter with the Indiana State Police, phenomenal personal relations. If none of you have ever heard Superintendent Carter, I encourage you to watch his videos and how he handles the public, addressing the public, how he handles the tough questions from the press, because I think I'm going to use a situation in Tennessee. I think TBI could learn something from him and his professionalism. But if you listen to what he says, he said in one of them, you may be in this room. You may be walking among us, but one day, we will find you. And when we find you, you want to know how we're going to know it's you? Because only you know the details that we know. But Alan knew that about the schmexual or whatever. No one knew that, or supposedly they weren't supposed to know that. So he wouldn't have gotten that information from Walla.
Are you a lawyer? Because you need to be.
No, I am not, but I have been told that several times.
Yeah, you should have been. Thank you, Gwen, for those candles.
I encourage you to go back and watch those videos of Carter, of him saying, we'll know one day, and we'll know we have you because only you know what we know. And he always said, we will never tell the public what happened because that's how we're going to know if we have our guy. So on one day, I'm thinking Alan is not guilty because of holes in testimonies and no DNA and all of this. And then I hear that we have a psychiatrist that has an obsession with the case, didn't provide proper care to him, feeding him information. But then I find out that he knew a graphic detail about the crime. Now I'm back to, is he guilty?
Yeah.
I'm on a roller coaster here, ladies.
Me too.
Henry, there's no confirmation of anything of his at the scene, though. That's the only problem with that.
Yeah, and I'll go there with you too. That I apologize for this in advance, but I have to say it. I don't think Richard Allen has brains enough to do this and to pull it off with no DNA. I mean, he's small town little country bumpkin.
Yeah, we had talked about that. I agree.
So there we go, back on the roller coaster. But I keep telling myself we've got over 150 people that are going to testify.
Thank you,
biggest thing
Michelle.
that-
Something in that 150 people, one of these days in the trial, I keep telling myself this, one of these days in the trial, at the end of the day, we are all going to have our mouths on the floor. That there's got to be something that's just going to just blow our minds. Like, oh my gosh. And if we don't get that, he's going to walk.
There's too many holes in it, right, as it sits right now, to where he potentially could walk, or it'd be a hung jury, or indicating or a mistrial at this point. So there's 3 different avenues it could go potentially in his favor.
I still say
I'm leaning more. Sorry, I'm leaning more towards the hung jury, just for one specific reason. It's very odd to me that they want everybody to believe that out of the blue, a 40-something-year-old man would come and do something like this, and he's never done anything before, even similar to it. Absolutely no indication of any type of depravity, even coming close to this, his whole life. And then he just sat back and what, for years before he was caught, and he never did it again? That doesn't make sense to me.
it doesn't fit his MO. But at the same time, they have, and I believe this is coming into record in the next few days, his Google history. And if that history comes into play and it shows that he did some searching for schmexual, CSAM, whatever, then I might change my mind. But right now, you're right. There's a guy that's never been in trouble, law-abiding citizen, went to work every day, appeared to, live in a nice home with his wife and his child,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden he's being charged.
Exactly.
Something's got to give to change my mind.
Well, I have got to go for the day panel, but all of your insights and expertise on knowing the facts in this case is mind blowing, and you can keep up with more than me. So I really appreciate you guys coming up here and taking the time out of your day to let us know what you think, and that means the world to me. Lisa, we were talking about the Delphi trial of Richard Allen. So tomorrow is Friday, thank the Lord. I will be live again at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time until noon. We do have a Saturday night show. I don't have anybody booked as an interview person because I suck at that. I'm just going to admit it, okay? I am not a booking agent. Like, I don't know how to book people. So if you guys still know somebody that wants to come up and tell about their case, missing person case, cold case, any kind of case, let me know, and I'll try to set that up. But right now, I have the event just talking about True Crime Saturday night. Maybe we'll do more giveaway. Book Panther, okay?
Yeah, I know what you should try to do. I have an idea.
Yeah.
I don't know if they'll do it, but I think it would be very valuable information. She appears to be very true and authentic. Reach out to Carol Comet.
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 Okay.
Carroll County is so small, they don't even have, they don't have news. So she is like from the newspaper. Does a phenomenal, fantastic job. Maybe you could get her on your panel.
Okay. I got the name wrote down.
Very nice lady. Nancy Grace is there. She got there yesterday, I think.
I love Nancy. She's my hero. Breaking news tonight.
But she is
Bombshell tonight.
she's out of character though at Delphi. Have you seen the video?
No.
She has a baseball cap on. I've
Like,
never seen her.
like incognito?
No, I mean she. It's her and everything, but I have never seen her dressed down like that. Ever. Might check it out.
Okay, I will. I'll check it out. So tomorrow morning we'll be live. Saturday night we'll be live. We're doing it and doing it and doing it. Wow. I was a cat today. I hope you liked my Halloween costume. I had a cat thing. Ensemble, I guess is the word you can come up with it. That did not get delivered, but my stickers did. So know that there was a whole other cat costume. But I love you guys. I hope you had fun this morning with Halloween trivia. Know that I love each and every one of you very much. You are making my dreams come true right before my eyes literally every day. I'm like, holy moly. We hit 70,000 likes, so thank you all so much for tapping your little fingers out for me. I really appreciate that. Please know that you can find me on any social media platform. All you have to do is look for the same username and logo. I am on YouTube, Bookface, Twitter, which is X, Instagram, and Scoops with a Z. Happy Halloween. If you go out tonight, please be safe. Have a DD. Don't TP too many trees like I used to as a teen, and enjoy those little ones while you have them, and enjoy all the little costumes and all the stuff. Okay. Cause that's what matters in life are these little moments. All right. Happy Halloween.
Absolutely.
Thank you, panel. I love you. Thank you guys. And I'll see you in the morning or later if something goes down. Okay. Bye.
Bye.